So far we have
I'm sorry. I was gonna ask you a question. For those
mhm,
columns, you made the columns in the middle to be
5 inches taller.
6'9".
Yeah.
How how'd you do that? I was trying to do it, but I couldn't do it.
Okay, so select the full columns in the middle,
Uh-huh.
right? And like I said, you can do selection one different ways, right? So if I just want to draw a box from right to left, as long as you touch those columns, it will be selected. Once you select those columns, make sure you look at your um, property palette. Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Then make sure you have an offset at the top offsets, which is right below the top level, which your level is
Uh-huh.
supposed to be 64, and then you just add a 5 inch on top of that. Do you see that?
Okay. Yeah.
So just add a 5 inch on top of 16 feet 4 inches.
Okay. So those.
Those are manually added. Okay.
Okay, because I might have messed up then, because I think I changed those to 16.8, and
Do not
I'm
do
not,
that. Yeah, because
yeah, I'm not supposed to do that.
yeah, that's the top of most of the CMU. Do not do that. Those levels are created for different purposes. As you see here, we are trying to stick with our jaw sparing elevations. So just
Uh-huh.
change them back and
And
add
then you do the top offset of 5 inches.
correct. That'll give you a 69 there.
Five
Okay.
inches. Apply. And there we go. Thank you very much.
All right. So with this 10 columns placed, what we need to do is for the rest of the column, as you see here from the joints, right? Not only we have columns on grid line, A, but also we have grid line B columns and full
Professor, you need to share
columns.
your screen. You're not sharing your screen.
Oh, I did not share my screen. Okay, sorry. Okay, so with columns on the A grid line being placed, now we move to grid line B columns. And again, same exact situation, right? We do not have columns on B1. We do not have columns on B12. We still have 10 columns on grid line B. Now, the only difference this time is the jaw sparing height has been changed to, from 16.4 to 15.6. And in the middle, right, in the middle has been changed to 69 to 1511. It's always 5 inch difference between the sides, two sides, A and C, compared with the unit B. So kind of following the same exact guidelines we have, been talking about when we place the columns on grid line on A, we need to go to the top of the grid line B columns, which is the jaw sparing height supposed to be 15.6. So that's what we're gonna do, right? Let's go double click on O2.1 JB 15.6 to go to the jaw sparing height 15.6 for grid line B columns. Okay, so kind of repeat the process, right? We are going to place those 10 columns at one time, okay, on grid line B from B2 all the way through B11, 10 columns at one time. So make sure, again, make sure you're on jaw sparing 15.6 floor plan. I feel myself, repeating myself all the time is I really want you, follow what I'm trying to do here. As you realize you got to look at both screens. Sometimes it missed one sentence from me, then you did not follow the exact steps. You won't be able to see the results as I see it. Okay, so trying to make sure that everyone gets that. So go to structure again, choose column command again, and this time we are still going to choose the 5 by 5 by 3/8. I remember that there are a couple of 5 by 5 by 5/16, which you do have that column available, okay, as you see here. But when you place it, don't worry about it until later on when you finish placing those columns, then you go back and change their sizes. That's what we usually do. That's the best way of doing it, okay? At this point, what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead, okay, to try the column command again, and we are going to choose add grids, multiple grids again. But before that, our depth has to be changed, okay? The depth for the columns on grid line B is no longer top of footing minus 1 foot 4 inches, right? This time it's minus 8 inches. Why that's the case? Okay, why that's the case?
Because it's interior, right?
Correct, exactly. So remember that note we read, right? It says interior elevation footing is going to be at minus 8 inches. So that's sheets S1.1. You remember reading that note, okay? So that's the kind of process I want you to process, right? You want to process in your mind. Hey, remember reading this note says for interior footing elevation is supposed to be at minus 1 or minus 8 inches. That's exactly the bottom of the columns. So great. So that's what I need to adjust. Adjust that footing. Now I have already choose the type of column I'm trying to place here, and I'm trying to place the columns multiple times at one time. So multiple columns at one time. So I choose add grids. So once I choose add grids, same exact process we went through, right? So first, I am going to draw the box. Now you understand why I'm drawing a box from right to left, because I only want to touch, those partially of the grid line. In this case, I can draw either from here, okay, all the old place I used to draw. But anyway, so I draw a box from right to left, and as long as I touch those grid line 2 through 11, they will be selected. Once the vertical grids has been, selected, then all I gotta do is hold my control key down to activate that add to selection, okay, and I choose grid line B. So once grid line B is selected, all the intersections when grid line B intersects with grid line 2 through 11, you will see there is a column being temporarily placed in place, right? Placed in that location. So that tells you, hey, if you finish here, you will see those columns being placed here with this particular type of columns. So 10 of the columns will show up, okay? And the last step is trying to make sure you check the grain finish check. Once that's done, click on modify and then go to a 3D view again, and you will see those 10 columns on the second row, which is on grid line B, will be placed as well. So now, just like what we did previously, right? Just like what we did previously, I want to check the spot elevation. So go to annotate, go to spot elevation. So for the full columns in the middle and versus this column. So currently, all the columns will have the same exact spot elevation. They are all at 15.6, okay, 15 feet 6 inches. So are the four in the middle. But we know that the four in the middle is supposed to be a little bit taller, right? So Evan, follow me. You're gonna do the same thing for the front four columns anyway. So if you follow me now, you probably figure out how to do that for front columns, okay? Now, what I'm gonna do is orient, so that way you use a mouse, you kind of orient the model, so it will be easier for you to select the four columns in the middle at one time by drawing a box from right to left. So if you draw a small, very narrow box, okay, so that way it touches all the four columns in the middle. So once you do that, those four columns will be selected, okay? So once you select those columns, make sure you read their constraints very carefully, right? The base level is supposed to be minus 8 inches. The top level is supposed to be joint sparing 15.6. Now you need to raise them to 15 feet 11 inches. All you gotta do is add that 5 inches here. So for the front four columns, okay, all you gotta do is add 5 inches here as well, same exact location, top offsets, okay? Click on apply. So immediately after you do that, what's going to happen is that spot elevation will look like 15 feet 11 inches. So same exact difference, right? See here, 15.6, 15.11, 16.4, 16.9. So it's always a 5-inch difference, okay? Do we get that? Any questions on this? Yes? No? Evan, did you get that fixed for your four columns in the middle?
No, could you repeat that one more time? I didn't get it.
Okay, so are you in 3D view?
Yeah.
Can you draw a box, select the four columns in the front?
In the front?
In
Yeah.
the middle? Now look at your property window. Do you see those? Make sure your base level is -144 inches. Do you see that top level is 16.4? Now all you gotta do is add the 5-inch to be in the top offsets. Okay, add a 5-inch to the top offsets. Can you do that?
Yeah. Yeah, I got it. It's because at first it wouldn't show anything in that box, so
Yeah, that's why
Like-
you got to practice that, right? So
yeah.
like I said, when you first get to modeling Revit, some of those little things like this is kind of true to anyone. Okay, when you first learn how to use a computer program or like any software, as a beginner, you feel like that software is always against you. It's like they don't like you, right? But it's not just because of that. It's really about you don't really know those little things that could actually make a difference. So when you learn how to use those commands, that's why practice is really important, right? You get familiar with it, so you know exactly what you're trying to do there. Okay, so take a little bit of time, but be patient. You'll get there, right? Now, can somebody actually now tell me what am I supposed to do for the last one, the last 4 columns in the middle? Remember that we still have 4 in the middle. Okay, if you go to sheets here, S1.2, you see the 4 columns in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4. See that? Okay. Now, my question is, which level should we go to? Which drawer sparing level should we go to in order to place those 4 columns? Anyone? Any suggestion there? Where are we supposed to go? What is the drawer sparing supposed to be there? $14.8. Jacob, you're right. Because we do not have a 15.1, okay? And so the only available one, the only closed one we have is 14.8, okay? And now, additional question. For those 4 columns, okay? Apparently, we have to decide. The heights we have decided to be 14.8, but then we're gonna raise them to 15.1 after we place them all, okay? Now, the bottom of the columns, would you agree that the 2 columns on the side, this one and this one, those 2 columns are supposed to be considered as exterior columns? Then those 2 in the middle supposed to be considered as interior columns. Would you agree? Yes? No? Yes. Okay. Perfect. So that's that tells us, okay, not only we have to go to 14.8, but also we need to remember when we actually finish placing those columns, not only we have to raise the heights to be 15.1, but also we need to adjust, okay? We need to adjust those columns. Make sure that the 2 on the sides are going to be going down to -144 inches. The 2 in the middle is going to be going down to -8 inches. So those are the things you need to go through your mind when you look at the models and drawings here. So let's go to 14.8 drawer sparing. And what we're gonna do is the same exact thing, right? So go to your structure, choose your column, okay? Doesn't matter which type, and the depth, at this point, either one. -144 inches, fine. All you're gonna do is make sure that once you place them, you won't need to make adjustments to make sure that every single column is at the right height, okay? So -144 inches for exterior 2 columns. Then at this point, I'm gonna place them all at one time. Then I'm gonna raise that 2 in the middle to be -8 inches. So choose the depth to be this one, and choose add a grids again. Okay, choose add a grids again. So this time, what I'm gonna do is make sure you actually zoom out a little bit more so you can see the full grid lines 5, 6, 7, 8 to be selected. Okay, then hold your control key down and select grid line C. So that way you see the full columns will be selected. Okay, full columns will be actually showing up here, and you'll finish up by click on the green check mark right there. Okay, then you click on modify. Okay, so as you see that I start to get a little faster because I believe that after a couple of repetitions, you will be familiar with those commands. Okay, But if you feel like I'm going way too fast, please stop me. Okay, I tend to do that all the time. Anyway, so now go to your 3D view. You see those 4 columns showing up, right? Okay, now a couple of adjustments we have to make, right? So let's try this. Try to select the 4 columns at one time. Try to select the 4 columns at one time. There's one thing we have to do universally for those 4 columns, right? That is raise the top level to be 15 feet 1 inches. Now, 15 feet 1 inch, the difference between 15 feet 1 inch and 14 feet 8 inches is still 5 inches, okay? Remember, there are 12 inches for each foot, okay? So that's still 5 inches, okay? Click on apply. So that will make sure that, you know, those have the spot elevation. If you do not, know whether or not you did it right, so just do the spot elevation. You find out, okay, that's exactly what it is. Now, try this time. Let's try a spot elevation at the bottom of that, column. The reason for I do this is, remember that the 2 columns in the middle, they are going to be interior columns. So they are bottom of the column or base level. That's what we'll call base level. Supposed to be, by choosing the 2 columns in the middle, we need to change the base level to -8 inches. Okay, so that will give you -8 inches. So that way you ensure all the columns will be placed at the right place, okay, with the right height and right depth. So that kind of conclude, right, our columns. But that's not done yet. Everything hasn't been finished yet, because why? Well, if you look at your drawings, you realize some of the columns, if you go back to S1.1, some of the columns are 3/8. Okay, I would say the majority of columns in Unit A, they're all 3/8, right? Okay, all 3/8. Now, the ones which are not 3/8 are the middle. In Unit B, you'll see most of those columns there are 5/16. So you need to change the ones in the middle. So those 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 to be 5/16. So how do I do that? Well, all you got to do is rotating, draw a big box, and make sure you filter them through, because you select something you don't want to select. In this case, I don't really want to select the spot elevation, right? So you uncheck the spot elevation. So all you got to do is choose a different type, which is the HSS 5x5 by 5/16. So that will give you a different, a different column. So this one now becomes 5 to 5/16. So let's double check for Unit C if we have any 5/16. It looks like we still have another 2 here, as you see here. Those 2, which is B10 and B11. B10 and B11 are both 5/16 as well. So those 2, B10 and B11, will be 5/16 as well. So that will give you the right type of columns. If you are not sure, go back to your George-Sperry 15.6. You should be able to see that, okay? Oh, did I change them? This one changed. This one did not. Okay, let's go back to 3D view. What happened there? I saw, okay. This one, well, this one changed. So what happened? Oh, that's the one. Okay, sorry, I made a mistake here, I believe. I'm supposed to be changing those 2, not this one. Okay, I need to change this back. Now back here, supposed to be 3/8, and this one's supposed to be 5/16. Okay, now go back to that. See 5/16, 5/16. The middle 2, 5/16, 5/16, and those 2 supposed to be those 4. You can't see those at 15.6 because they're at a low level. So you need to go to 14.8. You'll be able to see them. 5/16 and 3/8. Okay, and then go to 16.4. Make sure all those are the right size. Okay, so you double check everything. So that kind of conclude. Okay, that kind of conclude our columns. So we just placed 24 columns. That's all the hollow structural steel columns we have in this project. Okay. So before we do anything else, don't forget to save your projects. It's always important for you to save, so that way you do not lose any work. So any questions so far? We have one more thing I wanted to show you, and then we can, stop today's class. Do you have any questions?
I had one question.
Sure.
On the 4 middle columns,
Mm-hmm.
did the bottom of yours, a spot elevation, say -8?
Mm-hmm. And you talk about those as well?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Those.
Yeah. They're all supposed to be -8 inches, correct. So those ones, actually all the one, okay, on the second row, which is grid line B, they're all supposed to be -8 inches, okay? All right, because they're all considered to be interior columns, except for the front, which is grid line A, and on grid line C, you do have those two on the sides, right, on the sides. They are exterior columns, so that's why they had our column depth to be -144 inches. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? No? Okay, perfect. So let's try this thing. Okay. So it's a little work there, but it's not going to be horrible. What we need to do is actually we need to place those column footings. Okay, the column footings, apparently we have so many different types of column footings, and in our project, in our template, we do not have those column footings immediately available. So we kind of have to learn how to actually customize components. So far we have been, working on things just by grabbing what's available there. Now, this is the first time you try to customize things by yourself. So this is something I want you to try, right? This is something I want you to try. So let's go to this particular place that we can actually see all the columns. Let's go to our finished floor a little quick, okay? So at this level, you probably will see all the columns. Reason for that is the column go through the floor, right? Go through the floor, go through your slab. So when you actually go to a building, go to the first floor, if there is a column, you will see columns in the first floor regardless, okay? Because they go through the first floor. So you will see all the 24 columns there, okay? That's a pretty good place for you to actually place the column paths. So now, question becomes, somebody may ask, you said that all the column footing is supposed to be underneath, right? Supposed to be underneath the column. That is very true, okay? So for instance, to be strictly speaking, for the column footings, on grid line A, they're supposed to be all at -144 inches level. That is correct. Then for column footings on grid line B, for all those columns on grid line B, they're supposed to be at -8 inches. But because of the fact that if I go to -144 inches, once I place those footings, they will be there, okay? But you won't be able to see them because they're underneath that level. Same thing with the -8 inches. They will be there, but you won't be able to see them because they are underneath, okay? And besides, I really don't want to place those column footings just by, grid lines. So which means that I don't want to place one footing per one column at one time. I want to do something that is easier for all of us, and it makes a lot of sense. And in Revit, what it does is, the reason they want us to place the columns first before placing column footings is because they created, embedded a rule that any column footings supposed to be automatically attached to the bottom of the column itself, which means it doesn't matter which level you place those column footings. Eventually, those footings are supposed to be moved automatically by the program to the bottom of the column. So that's what Revit offers the designers as a automation or kind of mistake prevention strategy. So they actually embedded this rule. There's some other embedded rules. For instance, something you're going to learn very quickly is you can only place a door or a window inside a wall. So you cannot have a window or door floating in the air. So in AutoCAD, you can totally do that, right? You just draw a door, draw a window, and throw it in the middle of nowhere. In Revit, you can't. Because the Revit says, well, common sense, doors, windows are supposed to be inside of the wall. So if there's no wall, you cannot place those windows. It's that simple, right? So Revit has already considered some of the common rules, and it kind of helps the designers to, preventing them making mistakes like that, right? You just have a floating window in the middle of nowhere. That's not, meaningful. So that's something Revit wants us to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to place columns. Even before that, we learn how to create our footings. Okay. So go ahead and go to Structure tab again. Go to Structure tab again. And what I'm trying to do is I am trying to choose a specific footing. A specific footing that is called isolated foundation. A foundation and a footing. Footing is part of foundation apparently. And instead call them column footings. In Revit, they call them isolated footings, which makes a lot of sense because they are individualized, they are isolated from each other. So that's why we choose the isolated footing as the column footing. So once you choose that, and apparently all we got is those two types, right? It has 6 feet by 4 feet by 1.5 feet deep. And this one is even larger, which is 8 feet by 6 feet by 1.5 feet. None of them, neither one of them is actually what we want. We want something specifically following the dimension guidelines of this table. We want something f3.0 by f4.0 with those dimensions, and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and this is something we want to learn how to actually create. One thing I want to point out, however, is they have made another mistake here. Okay, so for instance, okay, for f7.0, the depth is supposed to be not supposed to be 12 inches. It's supposed to be actually, let's see, there is a previous join. This is the right dimension. It's supposed to be 20 inches. Okay, so both of them are supposed to be 20 inches for f7.0 and f8.0. Makes a lot of sense because those footings are larger, so they're supposed to be thicker. So let's go ahead, learn how to customize and create those column footings. So it's fairly simple. So what we have here is the default ones that is available to us in the system, but that's not what we want. So to customize any components, the first step is always click on the edit type. Okay, choose the edit type. I want you to resize the window a little bit, and then I want you to click on this lower bottom, okay, lower left bottom when there's a preview. That kind of gives you like a little picture of what does a component look like, right? So currently you're looking at this column footing, which is this size, okay? Now, our job is to create a series of column footings that follow the dimensions specified in this table. To customize anything in Revit, you would not change it directly on top of what's available there. Okay, you always, this is very important, I want you to remember this, you always start customization by making a duplicate. Okay, so always click on duplicate first before you customize anything. So this time I click on duplicate, okay, and I'm actually going to type in exactly the way, okay, you see from this table. So we'll start with f3.0 to f4.0. So once you get that done, now this particular footing you just created becomes your own footing. Then of course, you still have to specify, you have to change the actual dimensions of the footing because it would not change automatically for you. So what I'm going to change is the depth is supposed to be 1 foot, as you see here. Okay, 1 foot, 12 inches, 1 foot. The width is going to be 4. That's fine. You change that length to be 3. So you got a 4x3, 3x4. It really doesn't matter because you can always rotating those, and you know, as long as you're the you have the 4 feet and 3 feet, you're good. Okay. Now, after that, we don't want to click on OK yet because we haven't done all the rest of the footings. We want to create them all at one time. So what you're going to do is click on duplicate and have a different one, which is called, believe it's F4.0. Okay. So I click on F4.0. All you got to do in this case is you change that dimension to be 4 feet. Okay. Then you do the rest of them. Copy another one, do 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. I think we're running out of time. Let's go ahead and finish creating those footings, and we'll start. We're gonna save and finish today's class. We're gonna come back and pick it up on Thursday. So go ahead and duplicate. This time we call them F5.0, and dimension change only affects the size, does not affect the depth. Okay, so duplicate again. F6, and change that to 6 for 6 feet. But the depth still hasn't changed yet. Okay. Duplicate one more time. This time, if we're doing 7.0, this time not only we have to change the width to be 7 feet, depth, length to be 7 feet, the depth has to change it to 20 inches. 20 inches is 1 foot 8 inches. Okay, so make sure you make those changes. The last one is going to be 8.0. Okay, and change that to be 8 feet and 8 feet. So once you get that done, if you look at the drop-down list there, you see all the customized column footings will be there for you to use in this project. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here and click on OK. And don't do anything yet, just click on modify. Okay, we're gonna stop right here, and we're gonna continue next this Thursday. So let's save the project. Don't forget to save the project. Okay, let me stop recording.